video is about Facebook and the general ideas of how we talk about, think about Facebook with clients and prospective clients. We're going to talk about the value that Facebook brings and then the strategy that we like to deploy for Facebook. Number one, Facebook's the biggest social media engine on the planet. Of course, when we say Facebook, we include Instagram in that as well. There's a tremendous amount of reach, and with that comes scalability. You can get hundreds of millions of potential reach within a Facebook campaign, and you can get it all the way down to just a few thousand people within a potential reach of a campaign. And with that makes it the 800-pound gorilla, along with Google, one of the places that if you want to succeed as a brand, you need to try and make work. And certainly if it's not going to work for you, there's something to continue to test and optimize, because you can spend as much money as you want basically on Facebook, so long as your returns justify it. The platform itself is built to optimize, built to advertise, because that's how they make their money. So as a result, it's extremely advanced, very technically sound. There's not a lot of errors that are going on with tracking and click tracking and ad creation. Everything's very smooth and seamless. They're not updating it a whole terribly often, and it's a very good place for us to consistently showcase our efforts with great returns. You can prospect there, you can retarget there, you can target lifetime value, past purchasers there. So it's a really good place for us as a digital marketing agency. As mentioned, one of the things you can do is prospect. Facebook itself is not a search engine. It is a place to be entertained. It's almost probably a closer comparison to something like Netflix than it would be to Google search, simply because you're going there to see what's going on and entertain yourself, clicking through, exploring things. And that gives you, as a brand owner, a chance to fascinate somebody, create interest, interrupt them, inject yourself into their process of entertainment. And it's in a way that's passive, because they can scroll right past, where on something like YouTube in stream, they're forced to watch 5 seconds, and it truly is interruption advertising. The ability to scroll past or skip past an ad in Facebook and Instagram really allows it to be a willful participant in the ad. If they're clicking through, watching the video, there's more of a voluntary action there. But overall, the people that are on that platform are there to explore and find out new things and see something interesting. And that lends itself really well to prospecting, which is new customer acquisition. And it's one of the main sources that we use when we're trying to acquire new customers is Facebook, because you can target some of the things that are very helpful. You can get granular or broad, and we're going to talk about all of that as well. But just because of the user's intent when they're on the platform is lower, they're not searching an answer to a question like they are on Google, that makes them open to new ideas of products or interesting softwares or things that you might advertise. Audience specific is another note. You can target lookalike audiences, which are not the audience of people, but it's people that look like those people. So if you upload your past purchasers, and you can segment those in various ways: high purchase amounts, past purchasers, multiple repeat buyer purchasers, people who buy 3 or 4 times a year. And let's say we upload those audiences and create lookalike audiences based around them. Facebook's now going to target people that have similar traits to them, that also like craft brew beer and mountain bikes, or whatever the other interests that they have are, and whether they're engaging with swimsuit ads and you own a swimsuit brand, they're likely candidates to see a swimsuit ad for you, because they're in the market and Facebook knows all your behaviors, so it's going to show you ads based on that activity. That makes it very, very special in that you can target various different ways with interests, but specific to the audiences category. You can create retargeting audiences based on activities on site. If you've gone and looked at a PDP, a product detail page, or added to cart for a specific product, but let's say you still have not purchased, that would make you fall into the retargeting bucket, which is essentially an audience, and then you're retargeting that audience of people, and you can target separately the add to carts and the view contents both separately. And you can do that based on days too. You know, if you want to target 1 day or 7 day or 14 day, we'll get more into strategy as we go along. The point is though that you can create very specific audiences to help you. It's extremely scalable as mentioned previously. The ability to turn budgets up and have Facebook actually spend the amount of money that you want right away is very powerful. It's much more difficult to do that with something like Google search. It's very restricted on keywords, and if you go and try and turn the budgets way up, some people believe that, you know, you just turn the click cost up, but doesn't necessarily mean that more people are actively searching for that keyword. It just means that you're going to go ahead and pay more for that keyword when people search for it. So that's not necessarily a recipe for success. Whereas Facebook, you know, if you get your audience is broad enough, big enough, and you have enough SKUs, you can get in front of enough people to really scale. And if you have good ads and you've split tested your copy and you know what converts for you and you're managing your inventory, you have a chance to really turn the budgets up very, very well. Of course, website conversion rate optimization is important on that to that end as well. But the point is, if you tell Facebook to spend $20,000 a day, there's a very, very high likelihood that you're going to go ahead and spend $20,000 a day, as opposed to Google would be more challenging to get there. There's an interactive element with the ads in Facebook. You can like and comment. There's not many platforms that I can think of that you can do that kind of thing as well, and those engagements are pixeling those people, and you can retarget to them, which is powerful. You know, just getting people to engage, even watching your video if it's a video ad for a specified amount of time, you can then put them in an audience and get back in front of them because they've engaged with your ads. Those are really powerful. Being able to reply back to people that have commented is really powerful. You know, you can eliminate comments too, but just being able to engage there shows some sort of communication and human element to the brand, which can end up performing pretty well if you get good comments and you're very responsive in your replies. It can be helpful too, not just harmful. The visual element of Facebook is so powerful because, you know, if you, again, comparing this back to something like Google search, a search engine, you know, there's not a real video image component. Certainly YouTube has that and display have that, but as a conversion engine like Facebook is very good at converting and bringing people to the website to buy, you have an opportunity to showcase your brand with videos and images that you really don't have on something like Google Shopping, where you're typically just using the catalog images and their silhouettes, which is the product with typically a white background, basically showing people the product that they're looking for. On Facebook, you're trying to showcase your product in a way that makes them want to buy it and get engaged with the brand, or at least explore this fascinating product that they've seen and been introduced to. And that's what separates you. You know, if you're selling a hat, let's say that you have a hat company, and you want to showcase the fact that your hats have a better quality fabric or softer fabric, and that they're handmade in LA. Well, video gives you a great opportunity to do that because you can show someone touching it, you know, moving it, waving it in the wind. You can show someone with a sewing machine and hands putting it together. You can show buildings in downtown LA, and all of those things can lead to the messaging and understanding, obviously, that this is a well-made product from LA. And you just can't get that with still images or text only to the same level. Remembering that this is important because it's not the job of Facebook ads to convert the products, it's the job of the website to convert the products. In the ads on Facebook, we're not trying, and we'll get more into this on strategy, but we're not trying necessarily to tell the entire story. We're just there to create interest and get click-throughs to the site, and then let the site convert people with all the wonderful details in the story and the great videos and images, both lifestyle and not. And that's where the magic starts to happen, is you've created something that interests people. And that's really, I guess, another way to phrase the power of Facebook is that since people are on the platform without purpose, just to be entertained, it's a very impulsive platform. And the impulsive buyers get interested by an ad, and the copy matters a lot, the images and videos matter a lot to creating that interest. And the website is going to turn that interest into action through an impulsive purchase. Especially on new customer acquisition, net new eyeballs on prospecting too. Retargeting is certainly impulsive still, but they've seen your brand several times, so it's extremely effective to that end. talking about being, optimization, a learning phase. You need 50 conversions in 7 days in Facebook to get out of the learning phase. And what that means is, at the beginning of launching Facebook ads, you have all these audiences that you're optimizing for, or all these people that Facebook thinks might be good to convert for. And it's sending ads to all these different various types of people, trying to find who the right buyers are. And slowly, as you spend more and more, and some ad groups and ads get conversions, some audiences get conversions, and others don't, well, the audiences start to go away until you're left with the really the right optimal type of audience, and then Facebook pushes ad spend towards those people. That is optimized delivery, and that is after you're out of the learning phase. And it's the difference between the algorithm really having a good understanding of who the right buyers are or not. And it doesn't mean that the optimization is over, and the time spent working on the account and split testing and looking at inventory levels and working to improve ROAS is over. Certainly not. It just means that Facebook understands that this is the right type of person now, and we need to spend 70% of the traffic to males and 30% to females. Most people are in their mid-30s or whatever it is, and then they start to optimize the delivery that way. That's the learning phase and how you get out of it. There's long conversations to be had about dealing with budgets and how much you need to spend to get out. It's not a minimum. You need to plan on most of the spend early on, if there's not much history in the account, certainly going towards learning what works and what doesn't. A good example because we're targeting all these different variations, right? And we find the two that work. And that's not just the algorithm, that's interests as well. A good example would be a golf bag company that we launched, and they didn't have a lot of customer data, so we were testing various ideas on Facebook that might work. We tested 3 different interests. It was people interested in specific golf courses, people that were interested in golf professionals, people following Tiger Woods or whoever, and then people interested in golf brands, TaylorMade, Callaway, that kind of thing. And what ended up happening is that the golf pros did not convert, the golf courses did not convert, but the golf brands converted very well. So what happens then is we take that one ad group that worked really well, that targeting, and we make more of it. So we start targeting Cobra and all the other golf brands that Facebook will allow us to populate, and pushing more ad spend there. The challenge here is that, and why the learning phase is important, is we have to find that information. But we didn't get that information without spending. We still had to spend on golf courses, and we still had to spend on golf professionals to find out that they don't work. And the learning phase is about determining which interests are the best and leaning into them. And once you get through that, you'll know what works and what doesn't. So we had to spend on all 3 of those interests to determine the one that works the best. So it's something to keep in mind, in that you can't just say reverse engineer the CPA times 50 conversions and that's our budget. That you need to have way more money spending than that, because ultimately not every single ad group, everything isn't going to work perfectly all the time right away. You still have to find out what works and then get what works to get 50 conversions. So it's an important factor though. When we're talking about Facebook, usually we're going to want to have Google running as well. Depends on the budget. If somebody's got a really low budget, they're probably on one platform or probably on Google. But the point is, when we really have a good account and there's omni-channel spend going on, that's ideal. And if Facebook is really our awareness engine, where it's a great place, as we discussed, to find new eyeballs, and that's for a lot of reasons. It's an impulsive platform. It's not interruption necessarily ads. You're just kind of slowly inserting yourself as an option for them in terms of content, introducing the brand casually, and as a result, people are very receptive to clicking through and all that. Now, Facebook and Google work together really well. So if I'm running ads on Facebook, and that's my awareness engine, that's where I'm getting net new eyeballs, people who haven't heard of the brand before, and I'm introducing it and differentiating the brand with some video, and differentiating the brand with copy that's creative and action oriented, getting a lot of people to the website, developing audiences. Those people are also going to go potentially to Google and look for the product. And I'll tell you why. If you think about what I really like to say to prospects and clients too, is just thinking about their own behaviors. If you are on Facebook or Instagram and you find a swimsuit, as an example, or a wallet that you really like and is created interest for you, and you're not necessarily ready to buy it, but you did really like it, the next day when you come and you go buy the wallet, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to Facebook to look for it? No, you're going to go to Google to search for that thin wallet that you found. So it's really important that at that moment, when it's now a second impression, a more intentful action being taken to seek out that item, we certainly want to make sure that we're in front of the people then, because that's more intent-based, and that's what Google differentiates itself. But the two can work off of each other, because you're creating all this interest in what's referred to as brand lift, more people knowing about the product. And then if Google is the place where they're going to find and make their final decision, do some research about pricing and competitors and reviews. Now they're more intent-based, they're in the market to buy something. I want to make sure I have ads live there as well, and they can complement each other. An example of a thin wallet company we had in the past that we ran ads for on Facebook and Google in combination. We had a $65 CPA on these thin wallets, and the cost to customer was about $50. So they were actively losing money on Facebook, and the CPA on Google was like $12. And they said, well, we need to kill these Facebook ads, because most of the spend was going on Facebook, and we need to kill these Facebook ads and push everything to Google. This is ridiculous. I can't be spending $65 on CPA on traffic for Facebook. And we're trying to explain to them that that's not the way it works. You're creating interest and awareness on this video image-based communicative platform that you can engage with people in. And Google's the place where you're seeing simple silhouettes and text ads to reintroduce the product or show the product for somebody who's kind of more ready to buy. And what they wanted to do was eliminate the Facebook spend and go only with Google spend. And we're trying to explain to them that there's no differentiation now between you and the other products. So unless you're lowest cost or have the best reviews, or there's some sort of differentiating factor like brand awareness in play for Google, you're not going to be able to distinguish yourself very well from the big 800-pound gorilla wallet brands out there. So no one's going to know who you are. Your conversion rate on your site guaranteed is lower because you don't have the credibility that a bigger brand does. So you're competing against a big brand with a great conversion rate, and you're going to be paying more for traffic in order to win and differentiate yourself. And it doesn't mean that you're going to convert any better than you would if you're in 8th position. And so they didn't care. They decided to pause the Facebook ads, and the CPA on Google went up to $90. And that's because no one knew who the hell they were. And they were trying to figure out what was going on. And we explained to them that, when you're on Facebook and you're buying or you're being exposed to the product, you're creating this idea in somebody's head that's interesting. It's an intentful action that they're then taking on Google to go seek out a product like that product, but then they probably were so interested by the way it was made or whatever the reason is that they ended up buying your product. They worked together, so we ended up turning Facebook back on, and the CPAs went back to the way they were, and I think the aggregate was something like $25 or something like that. So it ended up working out really well for that client, but it's a good example of how the two work together as a good omni-channel strategy. Generally on Facebook, the strategy is most of the money we want spent on prospecting. 75-80% of the money of the budget needs to go to pure net new customer prospecting. People that have not been to the site, they're not pixeled, they don't follow you on Instagram, they have not given you your email, certainly haven't added to cart, and definitely have not bought. People, there's a chance that people have heard of the brand from word of mouth in the gym if it's a fitness apparel brand. Someone, hey, what are you wearing? And they tell them, sure, you can have a brand awareness that way. But as far as Facebook goes, these are net new excluded customers that have not bought, at least back to 180 days or so from Pixel standpoint. And then if we use the email audiences that are integrated automatically updating through Klaviyo, we should be able to exclude all purchasers, certainly from this kind of thing, and excluding all retargeting, excluding all audiences everywhere else. And that gives us really pure net new eyeballs, right? People haven't engaged. Then the second audience retargeting is at usually about 20 to 25%, sometimes down to 15, depending on how much prospecting, but it's disproportionately smaller list. And remembering that that's okay, because the only people you're targeting in the retargeting campaign are the people from the prospecting campaign. So we have these big prospecting budget, and there's a bunch of interests and all this stuff going on with targeting there, lookalike audiences and so forth. But then the retargeting audience only shows ads to people that engaged with those prospecting ads. So it's a much smaller list of people, and it's a much smaller budget that goes into that as a result. But the reality is that because they've now heard of the brand from the prospecting ads, the conversion rate is vastly superior on retargeting. But the combination again of those two is new customer acquisition, because retargeting still excludes past purchasers. So we have very clean new customer acquisition costs that we can show to clients, which is abnormal. A lot of agencies like to include past purchasers even just a little bit within their retargeting campaigns, because the ROAS is so superior. If you're getting a $3 past purchaser CPA and you add a little bit of that into your retargeting campaigns, you can get the CPA on those down from $24 to $16, something like that, right? But that's all fake. It's not real numbers. Like, we want to know new customer acquisition, and that's the way that's why we like to separate it like that, and how we separate it. We talked about lookalike audiences, but a little bit more about that. If I take the segmented audiences, there's a few I think I have written down here. Yeah, active subscribers, suppressed. So active subscribers being like active email subscribers. Suppressed lists, which would be people that have not unsubscribed but have not engaged with emails, so those get pushed to a suppressed list and don't receive emails anymore. They're still oftentimes interested in the brand, but they just aren't really engaging with the email anymore, so let's put them in the suppressed list so we don't pay for them. Past purchaser lists based on dollar amount. If they spent over $300 or $400, they need to have their own segment because they're high value, super high value. And then repeat buyers from past purchasers. Those are good examples. I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones I have written down. And then you can create lookalike audiences on all those different audiences from 1 to 10%. So a 1% lookalike would be kind of like my clone. Another one of me sitting here. It's that close in comparison. And as you might imagine, there's much less people that are exactly like me with my interests. Certainly there are a lot, but it's not the same amount as if you did a 10% lookalike. 10% lookalike being the biggest possible list with the smallest amount of similarities, but still something. It's not nothing. There's something there. So a lot of the time we'll take these these audiences that have been created, like high dollar amount past purchasers or repeats or suppressed lists, make lookalike audiences and make a 1% lookalike, a 2% lookalike, and a 3% lookalike, and put them all in the same campaign. Avoids heavy overlap that way, and can be very effective in showing more ads to the 1% lookalikes. Those are little strategies that are abnormal, but lookalikes are very effective. If somebody's not running lookalikes, if they're not layering lookalikes, if they're not segmenting, and they don't have a lot of lookalike audiences that have been built, there's massive opportunity. Facebook allows you to target interests, and one of our clients is a band, and they're a rock and roll band, and we want to target people that are interested in bands like them. So they're a rock band. Maybe we would also target Foo Fighters and Metallica or Iron Maiden and put them in an ad group and test to see how that interest performs. There's many different options like that in terms of interest. If we're selling a whole plant-based protein bar, we might target people with allergies, or Whole Foods or Sprouts, things like that that type of person might be interested in. That's the way interest targeting works, and we used the example before, the golf company that had 3 different specific examples of interest targeting. Okay, so we mentioned add to carts a little earlier, view contents as segmented audiences, and I mentioned the day breakdowns, but I'm going to dive into that a little more now. So when we create audiences of people based on behaviors, if they're adding something to their cart but not buying, if they're viewing content, whatever it might be, there is a chance that they're going to buy from us at some point if they don't buy on the first engagement. And that the chances of them buying on day 2 are vastly superior to the chances of them buying on day 5, and certainly on day 25. The further you get away from that first engagement, the lower the likelihood that they're actually going to convert. So when we talk about time frames in retargeting and the customer journey, as it's called, from first touch to first engagement on site to providing contact information all the way to purchase. It's important that you understand the stage that people are in and the amount you're paying to get in front of them again throughout that process. So we want to be conscious that we're not just retargeting isn't just simple retargeting. There's days that can go into it, and day breakdowns. So let's say we're prospecting to an account for a client, spending money. 80% of the budget's going to prospecting, and then we've got these retargeting audiences that we're going to try and turn all those seeds that we've planted as into these prospects. We're going to try and sow them into clients, right? Again, 98% of people are not going to purchase on their first time going to a site. So that's a lot of people that have not purchased but have actually engaged. Well, if the highest likelihood of them buying, if they've added to cart, is the second day, we'll take and actually make an audience based on a one-day lookalike and only bucket people on their second day and show them ads. But we do that and we spend a great deal on that group of people on that second day versus day 15 to 30. We'll just group all of the people that are in 15 to 30 into one audience. So we have a one-day lookalike because they're extremely valuable, high conversion rate, very likely to buy on day 2. And then we'll also do day 2 to 5 or do 2 to 7 maybe, because they're still close to that first touch, still interested, still fascinated. Maybe their credit card's still in their hand, likely to buy, but less likely than day 1. So we'll put a few days together. And then from there we'll do day 8 to 15 because they're less likely. Maybe we bid even less, or the budget's even smaller, and then day 16 to 30, and then sometimes we'll go all the way out to 90 days, depending on if it's a high ticket item. It might have to have a longer retargeting window. Now we don't set it up that way every time, but it's good in conversation to be able to understand the way that we can potentially hyper segment audiences and target them specifically with ROAS in mind. I'm very interested in capturing that conversion on the second day if they're most likely to buy on that day, and we're able to create audiences just for that. There's a lot of ways to create and utilize lookalike audiences, but that might be the best example. So dynamic ads for broad audiences are set up through the catalog. If somebody has 400 SKUs and they want to target to their huge audience of people, which is a good idea through DABA ads, you can have the ads run dynamically utilizing the information within the catalog and then leveraging Facebook's algorithm to dynamically display the most appropriate ad to people at the most appropriate time. Because remember, Facebook knows pretty much everything about you. They've got all your information, they know what you're clicking on, they know what you're viewing, all that data they own, and they're going to show you the best ad at the right time. So if a brand has fitness apparel, casual lifestyle apparel, and they have swimwear, and I am actively looking for a swimsuit throughout my time on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm going to people's websites, and they know that as well, right? Because there's Facebook pixels there. They're likely going to show me through the DABA ads, the dynamic ads, they're likely to show me the swimwear because they know that I am in the market to buy swimwear, not necessarily lifestyle apparel or whatever other type of shoes that they may be selling. So that's the way that the broad dynamic ads with the broad audience work. It dynamically updates for specific types of people, and then also which ads perform the best, which products perform the best if they're displayed first. The broad element to that, to the DABA ads as they're referred to, is important because broad oftentimes can be better. If you're running broad, it doesn't mean it's the only thing that works. Interest targeting still works. Lookalikes very effective, but dynamic broad ads can be very, very effective long term. You know, your audience of people coming into those groups could be 60 million as opposed to 6 million. We're talking about massive audiences. And if we're looking at scaling and effort, we'll need more broad audiences. So it's a tool that needs more data, right? So when you launch the ads, they need more data, more conversions, because again, if it's more broad, there's more people that Facebook's going to try and show to, and it might take longer for them to determine who the right people are to display to. But once it figures that out, it's extremely consistent, and it's something that you can update through the catalog software. We have our own proprietary catalog software that we use, and that's the tool that we'll use to update the ads. If something's not converting, we'll just remove the product from the catalog. If something's low on inventory, we'll remove it from the catalog unless they have it dynamically set up through Shopify, in which case we won't have to do that. But there's still options for that kind of thing, so that we're not spending money on ads to products that don't have inventory or aren't converting. I mean, that kind of stuff just isn't happening with other agencies very frequently. We don't run into it very often. The other term there is the DPA ads, dynamic product ads. And those are the same concept as DABA ads, but think of it just for retargeting. So when you go to a site and you click on a hat that you want to buy, the DPA ads, if they're running, will dynamically show you that exact same hat when you're in the Facebook world, walled garden, as they say. So they've got the information, they know what you've engaged with, and they're going to automatically show you that exact same product. That's when it follows you, that particular type of product follows you around. Those are DPA ads more often than not. So that can be extremely effective, and it's always ever optimizing too, so you don't really have to worry about whether you're getting the right products in front of the right people at the right time. One of the challenges there might be if somebody's, some brand's got a particular product that they want to try and move. It could be a hurdle, but more often than not, if they've got good SKU counts, they're going to want to continue to move all types of inventory, not just one in particular. So very effective as well. LTV is the last real cohort. It is past purchasers. We call it LTV, and but it's really, it's past purchaser audiences. As we said before, there's all these groups of people that have purchased high dollar amount, low dollar amount, this and that. The point is, though, that audience of people really only needs to make up 5% or even less of your overall audience. Some people want to turn way more spend up for their LTV audiences, which is a catastrophic mistake. Those audiences of people need to be cherished and preserved. If you oversaturate them with ads, they will get ad blind or unsubscribe from you in your emails, or maybe even unfollow you on social media, which would be devastating. So it's really important that you not overspend on your LTV audiences. One example was a client that had a bad experience before, and they hadn't run LTV for a really long time. And so we said, hey, we'll launch you and we'll do a lot of retargeting, we'll do a lot of LTV to start, but we're gonna have to start prospecting. And they're like, man, maybe, I don't know, we just want to reap the benefits of what we've created here. Okay, so we launch, and the LTV campaigns and retargeting campaigns, I'm not kidding, we're doing like 60x returns. It was absolutely insane, blowing it out of the water, but they'd never advertised to those people before, really, at this capacity. So it was going really well. They had, people that had engaged and been following them on social hadn't seen ads for their products in this way before, so they were buying actively. But after 2 or 3 months, the CPA was rising, the ROAS was going down to like 15x, which was still really great, but it wasn't 60x, right? And they're wondering what's happening, what's going wrong, and it's not anything going wrong. That's what happens. The audience has already seen the products. They just bought from you 60 days ago. Are they going to buy another hoodie from you right now? Probably not. We need to bring new people in and not over deliver ads to this past purchaser audience. That's the audience that you get to rely on for a long, long time for revenue. That's the one that's going to hold your brand consistent and steady for a very long time in terms of driving revenue, if you care for it and you don't overdo it. When come time for Black Friday, come time for any kind of holiday, you want to make sure that you can rely on those people to come back to your brand and buy from you and not some other competitor. So you want to make sure you stay in front, but not too much. That's one quick story there. All right, that talks a lot about our stance on Facebook, what we're looking for, what we like to do, how we like to do it. It's at a high level. Should give you a good base when you're talking to people. There's plenty more case studies, but for now, that's a kind of a good foundation on our stance on Facebook, how we look at it, and how to talk about it.